Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod NFL Draft Preview Podcast here. This is our QB edition. Thank you for joining us. Follow us at the Money Down Pod. That is Shawn White at Dumpster Fire Fan. I am Kayvon at Kayvon_sports. Thank you for everybody joining us. Give us a like, subscribe, review. All of that stuff means the world to us. And again, the Draft Pod is for you guys. We want to hear your teams. We want to hear what you want your teams to go after, the weaknesses that you guys feel like your teams have in positional needs, and tell us some of the prospects you love. Tell us why you love them. Tell us some of the ones you're worried about and why you're worried about. We will break them down and give you a shout out on the show. So thank you for tuning in. Once again, the Money Down Pod. Shawn, let's get right to it. This is our quarterback edition. First show on the quarterbacks. We're going to have many, many more as we go. Right off the bat, man, we're going to get more into this, but obviously this class is much weaker compared to some of these last classes that we've had. There's no secret in that, but we always know every year there's usually a quarterback that comes out and says, damn, how did we kind of not hype him up a little bit more? And then there's a quarterback or two or three where we said, well, we hyped them up a little much. Just briefly give us your thoughts on this class, and then we'll get into our top quarterbacks in the class.
So, yeah, it's a weak overall class. One of the weakest we've seen in a while, in my opinion, for sure. What I mean from that is there's not like an elite number one overall pick type quarterback in it, and there's also not a ton of just solid quarterbacks either.
Yeah.
It's where you'd rank it in class-wise, I'd put it above the E.J. Manuel draft because that class really busted all the quarterbacks. It was a terrible quarterback class. I don't think you're going to go that far down. But I also would put like the Kyler Murray class and all that above it because Kyler was in the class then. I think it's more along the lines of a class like that if Kyler wasn't in the draft, where you had the Daniel Jones. Or if you look at the Blake Bortles, Derek Carr draft, it's a more along the lines of those where you see – you have like some issues and red flags with the Johnny Manziels out there, maybe size and arm. And then you have Derek Carr, who just didn't play a ton of great competition in his time in college. And then Blake Bortles was kind of the same way. I kind of imagine this class is that kind of draft class. This is where I would compare that to. So the 2014 class, it's a weaker overall class. You're not getting a Trevor Lawrence. You're not getting a Justin Fields. And if we were going to really look at that class last year, I would say that maybe even Mac Jones would go over all these people. I think Mac Jones would be right along the lines of like the Kenny Pickett Corral level prospect. If we're talking before his rookie season, obviously, not including what you saw him do with the Patriots, but just coming out of Alabama. That's kind of where I've envisioned this class. It's a lot of different quarterbacks as well. You're going to get a lot of different flavors. So this is going to be an eye of the beholder type class right here. It's going to really depend on what the team wants to do on offense and what the specific team sees in each individual player. Because I think we're going to see a lot of different rankings compared to how normal, instead of it being a consensus one like usual. Just a far weaker class, in my opinion. How are you feeling about this class?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a much weaker class. I think it is, like you said, better than the E.J. Manuel class. But other than that, it's the weakest we've seen since that class. There's no doubt about that. My thing of this class is, to me, this is a class where if these quarterbacks, some of these quarterbacks go to a place where it lines up for them, and we know this is the NFL, it doesn't always work that way. It rarely works that way. But what I mean by that is, one, they go to a place where, and I'll get into this when I start naming my quarterbacks, where they already have a good, like Pittsburgh, for instance. You have a good defense. You have a good talent around the quarterback. I can see some things happening there. Second is they go to a place where they can actually learn and develop. Shawn, I think there's a couple QBs in this class where we could see them get drafted, and we don't even talk about them really for 2-3 years down the road. And then they end up coming out and being decent quarterbacks down the road if they're given that time. Unfortunately, the thing with the NFL is you don't usually see that happening. But because maybe some of these quarterbacks aren't highly touted as prospects, maybe we see some of these quarterbacks go later in the draft to teams like maybe an Atlanta Falcons who have a veteran QB and they can learn from Matt Ryan, like an Aaron Rodgers, where if wherever he goes, if he leaves, we all know Jordan Loves is there, but if he goes to Denver, Maybe Denver drafts a quarterback later on to learn from Rodgers, depending on how much longer he wants to play. If they go to a place where there's a veteran and there's a good coaching staff and good roster, I think there's a couple of those guys out there. In terms of going out and starting day one, I'm worried about this class from top to bottom, to be honest with you. I don't know how many QBs are out there in this class that I think can go out there and be ready to roll day one. I don't have one. I'll tell you my number one where I think maybe in the right situation, but you put one of these guys on a bottom 5 team, it's going to be ugly in the beginning because they all need some type of development as they go into the NFL.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I agree that if you put any one of these quarterbacks in a situation like we saw with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, or Justin Fields,
disaster.
That team's going to be picking number one again. I mean, you saw Trevor Lawrence get stuck with how he did, and he was the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck by the majority of pundits out there. And even if you didn't have him up there, he's top 3 for you at least. And you saw him go to a terrible situation and not be able to carry that team. I don't think these would be able to carry a team like Joe Burrow has or anything like that as well. This is definitely a very situational dependent. I do think Herbert can carry a team, but this team's going to need to go to a situation like Herbert did where they had the right weapons around him and the right infrastructure. And that was just a lucky shot that the Chargers were even picking in that situation as talented as they were. That was kind of just them messing up leads and everything like that the year before. Another thing that I do want to point out when we're talking about weakness and strengths of these classes, NFL scouts, and me and Kayvon also do this since we watch a ton of college football, you definitely project out, especially at quarterback, the classes down the line as well.
Yes.
So while this is a weaker class, you do have to look ahead and think, okay, well, next year you have Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud coming out, which look like 2 of the better quarterback prospects. At least if you were ranking them with this class, they would be 1 and 2 if you were taking it. You look 2 years down the line, you have Caleb Wilson and Quinn Ewers, and even though Ewers hasn't thrown, he has the talent. So NFL GMs and NFL scouts will be looking at that as well. And I think that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're scouting these quarterbacks is, do you actually need one this bad? Do you love a guy enough to take him? Or do you kind of play the waiting game and you might miss out on these quarterbacks in the years to come, but they could be much better prospects for you? I think that's something it's going to be fun to watch in a league that has about 9 to 11 teams that need quarterbacks coming out of the season.
No doubt about it. I think that's a really interesting point, a really good point by you as well. So that's something that we'll look into as we go, and that's something that NFL teams will definitely be looking into. So let's get it started. Go ahead. Who is your number 1 quarterback prospect in this year's draft?
I think my number 1, I think it's far and away, is probably Kenny Pickett. I think he's probably head and shoulders number 1 above the rest of the class. And the main reason is he's kind of a one-year wonder in a sense, but at the same time, he kind of has everything you would want in a quarterback without maybe the plus arm. And I have a knock on him throwing on the run. He doesn't do that as well as most quarterbacks do. But he can run. He's athletic and can run. It's just his throwing off the run where he's not planted and set could leave a little more to be desired. I think he has enough zip on the ball to get into tight windows. Not going to be the strongest arm guy, though, out there. I think he's more of a Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins type of quarterback where you keep him in the pocket a lot. And I think he has more of a plus arm than Kirk. And maybe a lot of people don't really remember unless you're a Falcons fan or something like that. But maybe a more Matt Ryan when he first came into the league arm. I think he does have that type of velocity on there. I think Pickett overall can pick apart a defense and can make all the throws. I think he's just the most polished out of this class. And like I said, he has the legs to at least make some run plays, a la an Alex Smith type straight line speed. So that's why Pickett's my number 1 in the class.
Yep, so I am right there with you. Pickett is my number 1 in the class as well. Look, you're going to hear a lot of talk about his hand size. They're going to be like the smallest hands we've seen out of quarterbacks, maybe smaller than like Teddy Bridgewater or whatever. That's what you're going to hear. That's what these scouts love to talk about. They love to dive deep. I'm kind of fascinated with Kenny Pickett. He is one of my guys where if he goes to the Steelers, I actually think he could be successful. Now, the problem is the Steelers are picking really far, but
and the Steelers share a building with him, so they would know everything about him compared to all the other teams.
Everything about him. And the reason why I say Steelers is Steelers are a team that they have a defense. They don't have to rely on Kenny Pickett to go out and win games. The Jacksonville Jaguars last year had to rely on Trevor Lawrence and more because his players dropped balls. The defense wasn't great. The coaching staff wasn't great in calling plays. Like, Kenny Pickett, to me, is a guy where if he goes to a situation that works, I think he can actually be a really good starter in this league. But I agree with what you're saying in terms of his kind of ceiling would be a Matt Ryan, more to me, Kirk Cousins, because I think Matt Ryan is higher than Kirk Cousins.
I agree. I agree with that. I just think that, like, if you want to project exploding through, that would be kind of the thing. Yes.
Agreed. And that's and I will say this: he is athletic. He can move. Like he can move. He showed us that in college. He can move around a little bit. I think he has a decent arm. Like, I think the guy can play. I think, to me, he is definitely the number one prospect. I think there's some room too between that.
Yeah, completely agree. And of places to go, I do agree with the Pittsburgh comp. I like that a lot. I like him at Washington a bit because I think Washington can protect well. Yeah. And I think his absolute floor would be something like the Falcons in the second round. I feel like he'd be perfect to sit behind a Matt Ryan. I think he'd have the athleticism of a Ryan Tannehill that Arthur Smith would like. So I think that's his absolute floor. Like I said, I'm a fan of Pickett. I don't really love the class as a whole. But I'm a fan of him as it goes. So moving on to my number 2, I guess we can go ahead. Yep. It's Matt Corral, but it's very shaky Matt Corral. I'm gonna be honest with you. He could easily drop, and I don't see him moving up, but he could easily drop a little bit for me. First thing you notice about him, he's small, man. He's a small player.
He is.
He's got a little bit of that old school Manziel vibe when you're watching him play. Not Manziel's attitude or anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure Matt Corral has good character and leadership.
He's a tough guy.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah.
But as far as his play style, he reminds me of Manziel. I think he's going to get compared a lot to Zach Wilson, but I think Zach Wilson's arm is far superior, and his throwing on the run is also far superior. Corral's going to have to adjust how he plays a little bit because he does a lot of RPO running, and I don't think he's going to last in the NFL doing all the running that he did in college. He was already banged up a few times this year, so I don't see that happening. I do think he's an RPO king, though, and what I mean by that is I think you could put him out there kind of like a Gardner Minshew and let him RPO, like hand the ball or throw. He makes quick decisions in that. That's probably his best attribute. He makes quick decisions and is accurate on his short throws. His deep ball could use some work. He doesn't have the strongest arm out there, but overall, if he goes to the right place, he could be a solid quarterback. I also just feel like I could drop him down because I tend to lean more toward traits and tools that you can build upon and coach, and he just doesn't have elite level traits, in my opinion.
Yeah, so Matt Corral's my number 2 as well. I like Matt Corral. He will not pass Kenny Pickett for me, but I do think that I will keep him at number 2. I think it would take a little bit for someone to move past him. My thing with Matt Corral is everything you said is right. Look, he's not like an elite. He doesn't have an elite arm or anything like that. One thing that I noticed about Matt Corral is he's a locker room guy. Like the team, the way he plays, which could be a detriment because he could get hurt, but the players in the NFL will rally around that. He will drop his shoulder and run for the first down if he needs to. Like, he has that type of aggression to him. And I also think he's athletic. And what I loved was in 2020, this man had numerous multi-interception games. This year, he worked all offseason. He came out. He only had 4 interceptions this entire year. So it tells me that he's learning under Lane Kiffin. He's clearly smart. He knows how to grow. I like that about quarterbacks. That's stuff that I look at. Just the little things like that. Do they get better each and every year? And he clearly did. And I just like his athleticism. I like he has good situational awareness, and he wins football games in the SEC, which is hard. Again, you're right. He doesn't have these traits that are going to be like throwing scouts off their chairs, you know? Like you said, Zach Wilson had a lot of those things that just scouts love. The arm talent, the way he can throw off one leg on the run, stuff like that. You're not going to see Matt Corral do those things, but I do think what you can see Matt Corral is, I think you can just see him be a steady quarterback. Like, I think that he can just get the job done, get a first down, get a win. I think that if he gets in the right situation and grows a little bit more, I think he has decent accuracy. I think he can throw the ball pretty well. I think he could be a good quarterback in this league. Again, he doesn't have these things that are just going to pop out to scouts and GMs, and that's going to be an issue. But you get him in the right spot, and you're totally right, by the way. If he was able to do an RPO type offense, I think that's where he would excel the most. But that also could be a downside because that is the easiest way to get hurt as well. And taking those hits that he took in college, you're not going to last in the NFL, like you said. But I do think his most successful scheme form is in an RPO offense just based off the way he plays and his athleticism.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. It's going to be an RPO or nothing for him. Why don't you give your number 3? And I'll go.
My number 3 is Malik Willis. He's 6'1", 215. Willis is by far the most physically gifted quarterback in this class. He is a quarterback that can absolutely make plays with his legs, and there is not a doubt about it. He took a big step back this year. His 2020 season was much better than this year, but I want to be clear. I think Willis could be the best quarterback in this draft. I don't see him jumping up above Kenny Pickett, but I think he has the possibility to be the best quarterback in this draft if, and this goes back to what I said at the beginning, if a team does what the Ravens did with Lamar. If they go all in on him and build an offense with an offensive coordinator and all that for Malik Willis. That's where I think that's necessary for him to be successful. Like, I think a team is going to have to commit to that for him to get to the point where he could be a legit starting winning NFL quarterback in this league. He's got he's very shaky. He's very inconsistent, but because he can make plays with his legs, look, at the end of the day, with the way the NFL is, that excites people. People will be excited because of his athleticism, because of the way he can move, and because of the way he can get first down with his legs. He has a decent arm. He can throw the ball. He has decent accuracy. He's just inconsistent. And for him to be most successful, he needs to go to a team where they build that offense for his skill set. But I like his physical gifts, but he is my number 3.
Yeah, completely agree. He's also my number 3, but I think I'm going to move him to 2, especially after watching the Senior Bowl practices. But I didn't want to overreact based on the first 2 practices of Senior Bowl, and I'd already ranked him out. So what I've been seeing at the Senior Bowl of him actually translates exactly to what you see when you watch him on film. He probably had the best throws of the day at the Senior Bowl so far, but he also probably had some of the worst as well, and I'm sure you're going to see scouts there tweet that out. That's the honest to God truth. He has some of the highest highs but the lowest lows. So that's something you're going to have to coach up. It's a lot like Josh Allen, but he doesn't have the arm of Josh Allen or the size. He can run, though. So he needs to go to a situation where what Kayvon says is true. You commit to his style of offense. Mm-hmm. You need to have him be in that type of he's going to run the ball a lot, lots of RPO looks, lots of Lamar fake handoff read option looks, and really make the reads defined for him. I will say that getting the ball downfield, I don't think he'll have an issue arm strength wise, but I do think Pickett and Carson Strong has more velocity on their balls than him. If you're talking just throwing slants and outs into tighter windows, but he can get the ball downfield pretty well. He throws on the run decent, but he can also get into trouble with that. So that's something mechanically he's going to have to clean up because I think he just gets a little off center even when he's moving like that. He needs to go somewhere where he can get coached up, maybe sit for a year, but if they're going to play him, I think a really good situation for him would be the Giants with Dayball. That's what you saw him do with Josh Allen. He can sit behind Daniel Jones while they figure out if Daniel Jones is the guy. I think another good place, you're going to hear it a lot just because they have Matt Ryan there, but he's good for the Falcons as well. He'd be the higher upside pick of him and Pickett. Because I really don't think Pickett is going to fall to the second round. I think Pickett, if any of them goes, it's going to be him in the first. Yeah. So I can see Willis being a solid project in the second round. I could also see maybe the Lions taking a flyer on him and their second or their late first round pick and just going with that. But again, that concerns you a little bit if Dan Campbell's going to be the quarterback development guy or not. Yeah. I think he's just going to take the most amount of coaching, but he has by far the highest upside of anyone in this class. So yeah, Malik Willis, I think you can get him there. I think he's a better version of what Philadelphia does with Jalen Hurts, to be honest. I think he's probably a more natural thrower than Jalen Hurts. Yeah. I think he's a little bit faster than Jalen running. So if you build a style of offense, how Philly had been running it for Jalen, I think you could be successful with him in the league.
Yep. And real quick on that, he is one of those guys because of all those things that you just named, where I could see an executive, a GM, a front office, a coaching staff fall in love with him and take him a little higher in the draft than maybe we expected. That's how these things work. They fall in love with someone, they take them higher. I could see that. And if they're willing to go all in on him just the way we were just talking about, I like Malik Willis.
Yeah, for sure. I like him a lot. So my number 4 is actually I have 6 ranked, by the way. I don't know if you just did 5. I did 6 because I think it's a 6 quarterback class, really. I think it's a weak class. I think there's 6 solid quarterbacks, really. I think after you get past 6. Okay, you did 7? Yeah. I can't wait to hear your extra one. Okay. Okay. So right here, this 4 through 6 is real. Well, 4 and 5 is real shaky for me. Right now, I have Sam Howell at 4. That's who I have at 4 right now, just because of the experience level, and I don't really have to worry about his injury history or anything like that. So, spoiler alert, Carson Strong's 5 for me. So, Carson Strong worries me with his injuries, but I will talk about Howell to start with at 4.
Yeah.
Howell has good experience, but Howell is also decision-making is his big issue. He throws some bad picks, man. Yeah. Some horrible picks. And he doesn't really have a plus arm. I think you're going to see this a lot on the internet from tons of different scouts, tons of different armchair scouts, people like us. Howell is essentially slightly weaker arm Baker Mayfield. That's what you look at. I think that's the perfect comparison. They're almost the same height and weight. Both kind of use their legs more than they really should. They kind of think they're more athletic than they are, in my opinion, and that gets them both into trouble. Howell doesn't quite have the zip on the ball that Mayfield does, but in college he was an accurate passer. I think if you'd have put Howell on those Oklahoma teams that Baker Mayfield was on, I think they're almost exactly the same, interchangeable in my opinion. I think Baker just has slightly more talent. So that's where I have Sam Howell. I'm really concerned about the decision-making. Like I said, you can't throw some of the picks he was throwing, especially at his year and knowledge of the offense, as many snaps as he's run.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Howell's my number 4 right now. Could be moved, him and Carson Strong. They're kind of similar for me. So maybe a 4A, 4B situation. But right now I have Howell at 4. I want to see how he does at the Senior Bowl right now to continue on.
Yeah, I agree with that. So my 4 is going to be the one that you don't even have on your list.
Perfect.
Bailey Zappi is my 4th quarterback.
Okay, I haven't got to watch Zappi, so that's why I didn't put him out there yet.
Bailey Zappi is my big shocker of this draft class. I am probably going to be higher on him than really anyone else you see out there. Look, the thing about Bailey Zappi to me, I watched him a lot at Western Kentucky this year. I find him interesting. He's going to be a quarterback that is limited in a lot of things that you can see, but I think he has a good arm, first of all, and I think he has really good accuracy, especially on his deep ball passes. Now, he played at Western Kentucky. The competition is weaker. We all understand that, but the man went out there and broke the single season record for touchdowns that Joe Burrow set a couple years ago. Again, I understand the competition is weaker, but that's really hard to do, Shawn. That is a lot of touchdown passes. And he has played for a couple years now. He's showing that he's better and better each year. I think Bailey Zappi could be one of those guys that gets drafted in 4th, 5th round. That's what I would want. He sits like I would love for the Falcons to take him in the 4th or 5th round, 5th round preferably, and let him sit and learn from Matt Ryan. And I think from a couple years after that, he could come out and be an NFL quarterback. I really do, man, if it's in the right situation where he learns. He's got a lot to learn, and he doesn't have the physical gifts that a lot of these people have, but he can move a little bit, and he has a really good arm, and he has a really good, he has this arm, and I saw someone writing about this at the Senior Bowl. He has a really pretty deep ball, and that's what he shows on the film when you go watch him. I want you to watch him so that you can give me your take on him. Bailey Zappi's my wild card. Again, I'm not saying you need to draft him in the 1st round. I would hate that, actually. I think that would be his demise. I think he needs to go in a later round, be someone that no one's really talking about, let him sit for a little bit, and I think he has the talent to be kind of like a Derek Carr. But I honestly think he has a better arm than Derek Carr even.
You think he has a better arm than Carr? Because Carr was slinging it, man.
So Carr, I think, has gotten better with his deep ball. At first, I didn't think he was that good. I think Carr has a stronger arm, but I think Zappe has a more accurate defense.
Okay, he's got a more accurate arm. I got you now, because I was like, damn, Carr had zip on it, man. I think Carr was stronger than Bortles.
But Bailey's more accurate.
Yeah, no, I love that. I can't wait to go watch him. Like I said, I'm not going to give an opinion on a guy I haven't watched. I'm not one of those pundits out there. That happens all the time on the internet. People will be like, "Oh, that's stupid," and never watch the dude in their life. So I will go watch him so I can make an opinion on him now, especially with how hard you were selling him there. I do want to go watch that now, so I can't really fault you there. I just can't really have an opinion on him because I never watched Western Kentucky play all year, and I haven't watched any film on him. So great pull by you right there.
This is what happens when you bet on a lot of games, guys. You start betting on teams and become a degenerate, and the next thing I know, bro, because Western Kentucky scored so many points, I started to realize, let me bet their team total. I started watching those games, and I was like, bro, Bailey Zappe, this is my guy. I'm kind of watching him. I saw a couple other analysts that are kind of a little bit high on him as well. I don't think anyone's as high as mine, but I'll transition that to my fifth quarterback, which is Carson Strong. So Carson Strong, and I had them like neck and neck. Like, really, I probably could have put Carson Strong, but I thought it would be a little bit more pizzazz and fun if I put Bailey number 4. And I genuinely do think Bailey is number 4 because of Carson Strong injuries, like you just mentioned. The thing about Strong that's fascinating to me is he took on more load as a passer than any one of these guys this year. The Nevada offense was strictly passing and nothing else.
Full air raid, Mike Leach style.
Dude, it was insane. I think he had I think I put a stat down here that he had 8 games of 45 passes in college football. That is a lot of passes, bro. And the thing is, he was still completing at a high percentage. He's the typical pocket passer. He's not going to beat you with his athleticism. If you give him time in the pocket, if you have a good offensive line, he can do some things. Under pressure, he becomes shaky. That becomes an issue. He can throw the ball away a little bit. And like Shawn said, he has some injury issues. But when he is throwing with time, he is a good, accurate quarterback that has some potential. And he's 6'4".
Yeah, so I actually really, really like Strong as a prospect outside of his lack of athleticism.
Yes.
Me and Kayvon are not going to be able to sit here and tell you if the dude's knee is going to blow out or not at all. No. We're just not doctors. We're not going to sit here and claim to be. So a team is going to have to medically clear him. That's going to be on the team doctors at that point. But if you take the injuries out of it, he's one of the better quarterbacks in this draft. And I do believe he has the strongest pure power arm in the class. Him and Pickett are both right there neck and neck for that. I think his deep ball was good, although in the Senior Bowl, he has been struggling with his deep ball accuracy this week, which kind of surprised me. I actually was a little bit surprised watching him do that. And that's one of the reasons why I couldn't really put him above Howe when I was watching these Senior Bowl practices. Like I said, this is kind of going on live in my head the last 2 days. Strong is not going to be able to move around at all, so don't ask him to. Your O-line better be good. And it actually set up perfectly that I have the perfect team for him to go to. I think the Buccaneers need to take him. Ooh, I think he'd be perfect in a O-line. Bruce Arians O-line situation. He's going to chuck it downfield pretty well with those receivers. I think he could run Bruce Arians' offense tomorrow if they really wanted to put him out there. I think the O-line would protect him enough to where he wouldn't have to really scramble a ton either. So with Brady retiring, I feel like Strong would fit well there. But I believe that's the type of offense you're going to have to run for him. I think the Saints would also be a decent spot for him with their O-line as well. Yep. So that's another spot to watch in the second or third round. I think Strong has a good amount of upside, just not athletically. You're just going to have to build a good O-line to be solid with him and let him really take those deep ball shots. He's your old school classic drop back passer. And as long as you clear the knee injuries, I think he has the upside to be about the second, third best in this class, in my opinion. And I could easily see him being the best out of the class if he goes to the right situation. He just has that upside.
Completely agree with that upside with the arm and with his accuracy. I completely agree, but that's the big thing. And again, when it comes to how drafting works, you're going to hear all you guys out there that don't pay attention as much as we do. You're going to hear the physical traits. You're going to hear the arm talent. Oh man, he's got a great arm talent. These are things that people like because it means a higher ceiling. When you have someone that can't move around a lot, look, the best player ever in Tom Brady is literally awful at moving around. So
he's a statue.
It's not going to destroy you. It's just he's also incredibly accurate and one of the best tight window throwers I've ever seen in my life. Carson Strong, can he become that type of accurate? Maybe one day. So it's not going to destroy him, but he's got to go to a team. If he goes to a team with a bad offensive line, it's a disaster. That's why I really like your idea of the Bucs. That's really cool. Good one.
Yeah. So 6, and I mean, obviously, if you're keeping up with like the top prospects, obviously 6 is probably going to be Ritter. I'm sure that's who you have at 7.
It is.
I'm not a huge fan of Ritter, and I don't like to come on and shit on guys, so I'm just going to try to keep it with a few positives, but a lot of negatives here. He's got a good arm, good athleticism. He can run, but I mean, his accuracy really a struggle. He loses it. His like throwing in layers where you layer the ball over defenders from the upper level with the linebackers in between the safeties. I don't know how well he's going to do that. You see a lot of high passes there. I don't know if he's there. He's going to take the most development out of all of these people, even over maybe a Malik Willis, in my opinion. He's just not consistent. And I know he played for Cincinnati, who did a good job, and he completed enough passes to win games. But he just looks a little shook out there. I mean, even watching him in the Senior Bowl practices, he was missing on easily completable balls by the other quarterbacks that were throwing out there. Really is going to be an uphill battle for Ritter. He can go to the perfect situation, which is what we've been preaching about all these players. They need to go to the right situation over and over. But I think he has easily the highest bust potential, and he's what I would call a GM killer. If you take him early, your GM job's going to be gone in 2 years. That's just how I view him as a prospect, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's my number as 6, as you said as well. Let me put it this way.
Wait, he's your 6? You have him over Howe, or
because no, sorry, he's my Howe's my 6. He's my 7.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Howe's my 6. He's my 7. I just got confused because that's your last one, right?
Yeah. You just had the one extra.
My thing about Ritter is if you put Kenny Pickett on that Cincinnati team, I think that they beat Bama in the semifinals. I think that's how good Cincinnati's defense was. And they were in that game because of that defense until they just couldn't score enough points. Like the reason I say that is I'm trying to show you how big of a difference I have between those two. And I'm not that much I like Kenny Pickett a lot, but I'm not like in love with him, So I'm just trying to show you like how big of a Ritter to me is. He's got to sit and he's got to wait and he's got to develop. And I think he could actually be a good backup. I actually think he could be a really good backup where he can come in and win a couple games if he needs to after he develops and all that stuff. To me, he's kind of like a worse version of Ryan Tannehill. And that's going to sound a little bad, but that's kind of like the comparison I see him as. That's my comp.
So to be honest, here's my comp. I think he's a slightly worse version than Jordan Love. And Jordan Love needs to sit about 3 years. I think he needs that much work.
That's interesting.
I think he has kind of the tools that Love has, only Love can throw on the run a little bit better. But I think he's going to need to sit that long to really get his accuracy and ball control under and being able to read defenses at a high level. Yeah. I think that might be the big knock on him. So we'll see how the process goes because I think Mel Kiper loves the dude. Like I think Mel Kiper has him in like the top 15, and I just don't.
Yeah, at one point he came out and said he had him as his number 1, but then with his mocks, he's got Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis going over him. So I don't know, but because at one point Mel Kiper said that he kind of saw some Josh Allen and
I don't see that at all. I just don't see it. I think Josh Allen's arm is 10,000 times better. Definitely. I mean, he's got the best arm in the league, obviously. But I don't think Ritter comes anywhere close to like even Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray arm strength wise, stuff like that. I just don't see it with Ritter. But again, this is the fun part about this. Yep. Last year, you kind of got a consensus. A lot of people were split on the Lance, Wilson, and Fields rankings, but everybody was pretty much consensus Lawrence number 1. And you get a consensus number 1 a lot of times. Honestly, some of these GMs could not have Pickett as their number 1 coming into this. Some of these GMs are going to have Willis as their number 1. Some of these GMs might have Howe up there with his experience. You're going to see these rankings flip-flop from team to team, completely different than the other ones. So even though it's not a great year for quarterbacks, it's a very intriguing year for quarterbacks. I think this is going to be something fun for us to follow moving forward, especially with all the quarterback-needy teams out there.
Completely agree. Yeah, no, it'll be fascinating to see. And then obviously he was my last, so my second to last was Sam Howell. What you said about Sam Howell is true. The man is so inconsistent, bro. I can't stand how inconsistent he is.
You watched a ton because of your girlfriend, right?
Yeah, I watched a ton. He is reckless. He is like reckless is the best word for him. He is reckless as hell. Not with just the way he throws the ball, with the way he runs. I mean, he's just a reckless player, dude. And he has potential. There's no doubt about it. He has potential. I mean, shoot, at one point last year, people were talking about him being a number 1 pick coming into this year.
Yeah.
It was before the season last year. They were talking about how because of his attributes and stuff, that was a thing. And his play just never lived up to that. To me, he's super reckless, and he's got to learn, and he's got to fix a lot of things, but he has potential.
Yes, you completely agree. Like I said, I think he has less velocity, but I think he's closer to Baker Mayfield than anyone else. And you're going to have to coach some of these bad decisions out of him for sure.
Yes, no doubt.
So, moving on, we also do a college football show, as all of you know. We've transitioned to NFL draft show since college football ended. But college football didn't fully end. We had National Signing Day today, and we had Caleb Williams announcing his transfer. So I figured we'd hit on – I think you want to hit on A&M a little bit, and I'd like to agree with that. And then we'll hit Caleb Williams, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you want to start, or you want me to start right here?
You start. You can go ahead and start with A&M.
Yeah, A&M was incredible today. So everyone knows that fall is recruiting. 24/7 is one of the biggest recruiting sites. If you don't know it, it's 24/7 Sports. They track all types of recruiting, football, basketball, all that stuff. They had A&M's class as the best class in the history of since they started doing this and tracking classes. That's how good of a class A&M had. Riddled with 5 stars. They now have depth at every single position. And not just depth where it's like an okay player. They have like Alabama type depth at every single position. And what this comes down to me, I'm not going to get too deep into the players and what they got. First of all, they're going to be phenomenal on the D-line. They are going to be every team that plays them is going to be a force to reckon with on that D-line. It's going to be trouble. They're going to be fast. They're going to be strong. They're going to be big. They're going to be great. They finally got some receivers that could spread. That was always the issue with Jimbo's offense. He wasn't able to spread the ball out. Finally got some receivers that can go downfield. A&M's going to be stacked. And what this all comes out to me is Jimbo's on the clock. He's got to make a college football playoff in the next couple of years. I'm not going to tell him, not going to overreact and say you have to make it next year because a lot of these guys are freshmen, all that stuff. In the next 2-3 years, Jimbo has to make a college football playoff, if not win a national title with this type of recruiting class. This is historic. I mean, I'm talking, this is incredible what he did. Props to him. I know a lot of people are saying, NIL, and yes, of course, they threw a lot of money at it. That's how it is. But also, you got to work really hard and recruit really well to get these guys. I don't care how much money you throw at these guys. That's what they did. Congratulations to Texas A&M. Congratulations to Texas A&M fans out there. But now it's got to translate on the field. There's no more excuses now. You can't go out on a normal Saturday and lose to Mississippi State. You can't do that, all right? It's beating everybody. And if you do lose, it better be to Alabama because that is the expectations now.
Yeah, completely agree. I think you look at this class they had and really the last few classes, and you can kind of see a similarity to that last Georgia team that won, where they just have 5-star after 5-star backing up people on the defense especially. That D-line is going to be crazy. They have every D tackle and end you could ask for. Their linebacking core is great, and they have corners to go with it. They're stacked on defense. And you're right. This is their time clock right here to start winning one in the next 2-3 years. I wouldn't say next year as well, even though when we get to it in the summer, they might be one of my dark horse picks I'm really thinking about.
Yep.
Because it's going to mainly break down to the quarterback and what they choose to do with that. So we'll have to wait and see. But recruiting-wise, Jimbo's on a different level than a lot of these people, and that's including Alabama and including Georgia. They have 5 stars everywhere. They're going to be one of the most talented teams. If your NFL team has an SEC scout, and they usually put their strongest scout in the SEC schools, because that's where the most talent is, you got to think that anytime there's even a decently big game down in the conference, they're going to be going to see A&M play because of all the talent they have down there. They're going to put a ton of people in the NFL over the next 3 to 4 years, almost to the point where about every one of your teams is probably going to end up with one or two of these guys on it. They're going to be insanely loaded. And for an NFL draft type show like what we're doing, you might want to pay attention to A&M because a lot of these prospects we talk about over the first 4 or 5 rounds, you're going to see a lot of A&M people out there. So that's one thing to look for going forward. I'll transition us into Caleb Williams right quick. Yep. He chose USC. So what does that say? First off, Jackson Dart committed to Ole Miss before. So if Caleb hadn't have committed there, USC would have been completely screwed.
Yes.
That's a right move by Caleb.
They kind of had that in the bag, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Wisconsin was coming through at the end and everything like that. But I will say this. That was the right move by Caleb Williams. We're talking about how weak the quarterback class is. You're going to go for 2 years with Lincoln Riley, who's put out Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and Kyler Murray. You're going to go there. You have the pedigree. NFL people respect Lincoln Riley as an offensive genius that develops quarterbacks. He's in the right spot. Will they have great success next year? That's yet to be determined. It's the first year of a new regime. But I think you're going to look at that last year that he has his junior year in 2 years. I think you're going to look at him and be like, wow, that might be a number 1 pick right there. He's going to have all the talent in the world. I think USC could really jump up in the rankings and really in the playoff conversation by that second year with the addition of Caleb Williams while Lincoln Riley tries to get it rolling there.
No doubt about it. This was the best move for Caleb. I know there was a lot of smoke coming out about Wisconsin because his father knows the offensive coordinator very well. It's something that they just hired. It's someone that he knows, blah, blah, blah. Since Caleb Williams became on the map, I'm talking about even in high school, him and his dad has preached over and over that their number 1 goal is to be the number 1 pick in the draft. That is literally all they've said. They haven't talked about a championship. They said they would like to win a championship, but from day 1, they have been on the record saying he wants to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And if that is still your goal, there's only one place to go, and that's the man that has made Lincoln Riley, that has made Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield the number 1 pick in the draft, as well as making Jalen Hurts a second-round pick. And he is the guy to do that. He made the right decision. And I think, Shawn, to even go as much to say as because of the coaching change in Oregon, I think USC could possibly win the Pac-12 this year. Now, I still like Utah. Everyone forgets about Utah because it's Utah, but Utah's bringing a ton of players back. They're losing Devin Lloyd. They're losing their running back. I think the running back might be coming back. I'm not sure, but Utah's a very good team, and they're going to have a lot of continuity. USC won't. But the pressure now begins with Lincoln Riley. He got his guy, and I think they could impact some players and make some big wins this year. But you're right. Now, 2 years, college football time, college football playoff time is what we'll be looking at.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that also sets up Lincoln very well with the same kind of formula he used at Oklahoma. Now his 5-star recruit next year is going to get a year behind Caleb Williams. That's what Lincoln likes to do. He likes to get his freshman 5-stars in for a year to sit behind the current starter, and then he molds them into number 1 picks. It sets up perfectly for Lincoln Riley. That's the best move for both. And the Pac-12 just got a whole lot more interesting. I know me and Kayvon like to watch it after dark. The Pac-12 has been down for about 5 years now. Yeah. You can see a revival coming here with how Oregon and Utah play, but now with Lincoln at USC, you can definitely see them picking up from now on.
No doubt about it. And again, with the changes at Oregon and all that stuff, I still think Oregon has a lot of talent. They'll be good, but USC can really take off, and they can take off quick. It is going to be fun to watch, and that is pretty much all. Anything else you want to add?
One little sneaky thing was Washington State getting their quarterback in the National Signing Day today. Washington State out there pulling good quarterbacks.
Who did they get?
It's his first name's Cam. I'm blanking on his last name. I was trying to look it up for a second.
Hey, Washington State played some good football towards the end of last year, man. They could definitely be in. They played good football with all that drama going on too. They could definitely be a good team. I would not be surprised about that at all.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. Like I said,
my thing is with really quick, one more thing about USC too. I'll be just fascinated to see how Caleb Williams, just because he was a baller last year, but he had some mistakes. I can't wait to see how he is one more year under Lincoln. That's something I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I almost have the name. Hold on one second.
Okay. No worries if not. So really quick update what Shawn looks on that. Again, this is the Money Down Pod. Follow us on Twitter at Money Down Pod. Follow Shawn Dumpster Fire fan, myself at Kayvon_sports. What we are going to do from here on out, because the NFL is starting to end, we're going to do one more show previewing the NFL Super Bowl, obviously next week. That will be the Bengals and the Rams. That line is, by the way, shooting up to -4.5. So clearly sharp money is coming in on the Rams already. We'll see if that kind of tempers down and goes back to the Bengals side as the public starts to come involved, because as we all know, the public starts to bet later in the week. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll do a Super Bowl preview. We'll do a Super Bowl after the game, obviously on that Monday, kind of go over a Super Bowl recap. And then we're going to get heavy into this draft after that. We're also going to get into basketball. We both watch basketball, NBA, college, all that stuff. March Madness. We'll have a lot of fun there. We'll do brackets with you guys and everything. But our draft talk is really going to take over after this Super Bowl ends.
Yeah, so it's Cam Ward. He was the 4th highest rated transfer quarterback from Incarnate Word. He was down to Ole Miss and Washington State.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. He swung it in Incarnate, bro. He was throwing touchdown passes like it was his job.
Yeah, so he chose Washington State, which I found super interesting. Like, Washington State always has these sneaky, low-key quarterbacks. So when I saw that happen today, I blinked on his last name for some reason. But yeah, it's Cam Ward from Incarnate Word. He went to Washington State. I thought that was a low-key, really good move for them.
For sure. No doubt about it. And I'm telling you, go look at his highlights if you haven't seen him at Incarnate Word. He did some things there. All right, this is it. Thank you guys for following at Money Down Sports. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please, it means the world to us. And we will be back later on to break much more down, especially later on with the coaching cycles. We think finally some hires will happen. Talk to you then.